Let me chat with you just short and quick and sweet and to the point about Fit Pro and FITstream pedometers. This afternoon I'm going to talk about the wireless pedometers that upload to a computer. I'll let you try them. We'll do some things, learn exactly how the pedometers work, how they upload wirelessly. The ones I'm going to talk about right now use a reader and you just take the pedometer, put it in the reader, it's connected to your computer, and you upload. And that's one I'm going to talk about a little bit now. However, both pedometers measure MVPA, and that's kind of my focus in this just real quick, short discussion, because we always talk about MVPA, but then I say, well, how do you know it's MVPA? And how do you help kids keep track of it? So that's the thing I want to talk about today. And by the way, when we're done with this, Brianne will hand out some cards, and some of you may be a winner of a set of 15 FITstep Pro pedometers and a reader. So hang in there, see if you're the big winner, okay? Just let me summarize it quickly. Why do you use pedometers? Number one, because you need accurate feedback. People are always telling you, well, I'm active. And you say, well, how do you know? And they say, well, I think I walked a long ways, blah, blah, blah. Well, we all know you overestimate your activity and underestimate how much you eat. So what happens? We gain a few pounds. But I think this is the biggest one. If you measure something, people value it. When you don't measure, then it says teachers don't care about it all that much. Think about the things, how states are making you as teachers value certain areas. They want to measure it. They talk accountability. They're pushing you in that area. If we don't measure activity, how in the devil are we going to be able to tell kids that they should be more active? What's the motivation? We have no way of measuring it. And then finally, your students will value what you value. If you value physical activity, they will value it. And it's a pretty easy concept to understand, but what are you doing in your teaching now to show kids how important the activity they accumulate in a 24-hour period is? And we rarely do anything. And when I ask teachers what they measure, what is it that they measure? Always fitness. Now, I love fitness, that's a whole different story, and I practice fitness. But remember, the nice thing about physical activity is every kid can be more active. Not every kid can reach a high level of fitness. And in PE, we teach to the masses. We're teaching all kids, and the very kids we need to reach are those ones that don't like it. And so if we can help them, we're going to help ourselves and our profession. The FITstep Pro pedometer is pretty neat in that it measures a lot of different things, and in my session this afternoon at 1:45 I'll put one on you and take you through all the ways of using it and how to calibrate it. But basically it measures three things. Steps, which is not a very good measure except for when you're calibrating a pedometer. The reason is we've all heard this business about 10,000 steps. Okay, what does that mean? So if I take tiny steps and I cover this much ground versus somebody who has a long stride, think about it. The person with the long stride is going to cover a lot more distance, burn a lot more calories, but have fewer steps. So it's very inequitable to kids. Activity time is all the activity that you move. I don't care whether it's slow or fast, intense, lollygagging, whatever you want to call it. Whereas then we'll go into MVPA and we set a threshold. And when you go above that threshold, then that's MVPA. And in my session this afternoon, I'll show you how you set that up. It's very easy. The nice thing about the FITstep Pro pedometers is that if you've used pedometers, you know a battery's a real pain in the neck. You go a month or two and you need a new battery, and that's a real pain in the neck. This has a big battery in it, and It is easy to change, but it lasts 3.5 years if you upload 16 times a day. So just think, for the next 2-3 years, you're not fooling with batteries. And I've been in schools forever, and I know what happens when the battery goes dead. The pedometer goes dead and lays there for quite some time, maybe forever, because batteries aren't cheap either. So now here you are, you just got going, now you got to go buy batteries. So I love this about the battery life, very important. Why MVPA? Well, it helps kids who need it the most, the unskilled and the overweight. And you know, if I may, let me define MVPA to you. The government, CDC, defines it as a brisk walk. I tell kids it's when you walk and move your arms. This is a brisk walk to me, when you're moving along and you're swinging your arms in that. It's not a run, it's something you can do forever. You can take a friend, you can talk to them while you're doing your MVPA walk. You're not going to lose your breath where you can't go on, but it's more than, you know, looking around and going from here to there. It's going there with a purpose. It's like when you're hungry or have to go to the bathroom. That's a brisk walk. Okay? So it's that sort of thing we're thinking here. So all the governing bodies recommend 60 minutes a day of MVPA. We're not even getting close with that. And we will never solve all of that for kids in PE. So I'm not going to sit here and say that you're going to be able to give kids 60 minutes of MVPA a day through PE. You're not. What you're going to teach them is the attitude about measuring MVPA, number one. Number two, what MVPA is and what my MVPA level is. And I'm going to show you this afternoon how to find that. So the way the pedometer measures MVPA is that we'll walk for a minute. If we were doing this, we would walk at our pace for a minute. My pace may be fewer steps per minute than yours, and you may have more steps per minute than me. In other words, you know, one of my pet peeves, and if you've listened to me in the past, you know that I hate when we set one standard for all. I just hate that, and we've done that forever. Give me 25 push-ups, you know, let's all run a mile, all that kind of stuff. When we know that we have overweight kids, we have some who aren't strong, etc. Same with MVPA. You can't expect all kids walk at the same pace. So what we'll do, we'll walk for a minute at an MVPA pace, and then we'll put that figure, I'll show you how to do it because it's too complicated to do it here. And if you're at my session at 1:45, we'll put a pedometer in your hand and have you do it. And you set your own personal MVPA level. So when I'm walking like this, maybe I'm walking at 70 steps per minute. That will all go into this pot right here of activity time. In other words, it's below MVPA level. And let's say mine's 100 steps per minute, which it is, by the way. So my MVPA level is 100 steps per minute. And so you'll get into that. So when I'm below 100, it'll go into activity time. When I get above 100, and I'm really cruising along, then the pedometer will throw that into the MVPA counter. And all activity time will go into the MVPA counter. Okay? So what you'll have is activity time that includes MVPA. It includes just regular activity time, slower than MVPA. And then you'll have another counter on your pedometer that will show you your MVPA time. It's calibrated for each individual person, exactly right, yeah. So each individual person has it calibrated to them. So for example, my wife is small. Those of you that know Deb, she's small. When we walk, I walk to get to MVPA at about 100. She goes about 120 because she takes shorter steps. And so my MVPA on my pedometer will go in once I get above 100 steps. Hers will go in when it's above 120. And we calibrate it for each youngster. And then when you're done, then you have three things. You have the number of steps you covered, probably not all that important. You have the amount of activity you had today. And then you have that, what percentage of that was MVPA. Then when we upload it into the software, then it'll go through and calculate what percent of that was MVPA and what percent was just activity time, and it'll keep track of it, and it'll print out a certificate. A lot of other things you can do with the software. Right here, I just kind of wanted to tickle you a little bit with pedometers and the kinds of things they can do. This happens to be the most accurate pedometer on the market. And I've played with pedometers now for about 20 years. I started with a company called Walk for Life many years ago. And they had pendulums in them, and you could hear them and that sort of thing. That used batteries quickly, and they also broke every time you dropped it. Okay? And every time it dropped, and if what happened is that teachers said, well, you know, kids drop them and break them. Well, of course they do. What do you expect? When we do it in the room today, you're going to drop them. And the beautiful thing here is they don't break because there's no moving parts. So, and they're also the most accurate by far. But let me say this, no pedometer is accurate if you don't put it in the right place, and that's what I'll talk about this afternoon. We're going to search for our correct placement, and then each kid will know where the correct placement is. Brianne, I think it's about time for you to start handing out those winning certificates here.